Hello, friends and clients. I am Jennifer Walker Gates, immigration attorney with JLW Immigration Law Group. I'm here today with my fabulous colleague, Diego Nunez, also an immigration attorney with JLW Immigration Law Group. How are you doing, Diego?
Good, Jennifer. How's it going?
It's really good. I am. Um, I appreciate you being here with me today to talk about some of the crazy news. My neck still hurts from the whiplash we've been through this week with immigration law in Texas. So I would love to give our viewers a little update on that. And then it's tax season also, and I want to ideally share some of our best tips for our non-citizen friends and clients who are trying to get their taxes done and get them done correctly. So that's what I would love to chat about today. Does that sound okay to you?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, SB-4. This is a law that, in case anyone doesn't know, would authorize Texas state law enforcement agents to arrest people suspected of not having lawful immigration status, being in the country illegally, is how it's written, and and then prosecute them criminally, and then subject them to a state deportation from a state judge. This is a new concept. The immigration laws historically have been exclusively the domain of the federal government. And so having a state step in and say that they want to do this, other states have tried it, but the Supreme Court has always struck them down. And I suspect the same will happen with this one, but this week was a little bit crazy. You want to explain kind of what happened this week, Diego?
Well, there was a request for an emergency stay or a request to stop the implication of the beginning of the enforcement of the law, and the Supreme Court rejected it. So it looked like it was going to move forward, and Texas was going to start enforcing SB-4. And then hours later, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals said no, like we don't know how this is going to be applied, and we're stopping it so that it can be litigated. Um, I don't think I'm not sure, but there have been very crazy different types of laws, especially in Arizona, where they try to enforce immigration policy. I'm not sure. I don't remember that Arizona was trying to do their own deportations. So
No.
one interesting response was from the Mexican government, and they said they weren't going to take anybody, from being deported from Texas, and that makes a lot of sense. I think that foreign governments have to have an agreement with the government that is doing the removal, and often when someone is going to be removed, you need the government needs to have the proper paperwork. Let's say the individual is from Guatemala, and they need the proper paperwork from the U.S. consulate, the consulate in the U.S. from Guatemala, to enable them to remove that person, because usually they're doing it by plane. But Texas was saying that they just didn't matter who they were and where they were from, they were going to be deported to Mexico. And Mexico said no, no gracias. And so that was I think also a good response. But it's crazy that we're sitting here and we're still talking about it. It steps on the feet of the federal government. I don't understand how this law would stand any kind of legal scrutiny, but here we are.
Yeah.
Um, well, Jennifer, I think just froze, so we're gonna keep going. One of the things that I think people need to understand about SB-4, and we've talked about it a little bit before, and that's that it is it is a criminal law. They're trying to put criminal penalties for individuals that have entered the United States through the Mexican border into Texas without status. And so that means that being a criminal proceeding, you have a right to an attorney. So I'm sure that many different prosecutors around the state are now looking forward to moving, forward with these kind of criminal cases, because it's going to be something a little bit out of their jurisdiction. Anyway, just know that whenever it is that you are confronted by law enforcement in Texas, you do have to show, identification if you have it. Under federal law, if you're being pulled over by ICE and you have, immigration papers, you do have to show the government, the federal, immigration agents, your documents to show who you are. But you do not have to, provide your immigration status to a state trooper. It's self-incrimination. You have the right to not self-incriminate. There's many rights that apply in criminal proceedings that don't necessarily apply in immigration. So, just know your rights, and, hopefully this will not be something that we will have to move forward with. The other thing that we're going to talk about today, because it is tax season, is taxes. And, we are not tax attorneys, but we deal with taxes on a fairly regular basis, because in immigration, taxes can be something that reflects good moral character. It is something that everyone that is working has to report, for the most part, that, unless you are fall under income exception, if you don't earn enough. And as as a single individual or as a married couple, the amount that you have to earn in order to not report can fluctuate. I'm not going to pretend to know. All I know is that it changes every year. So you may want to talk to a tax professional about that. The way that taxes can affect individuals can be very, very, in different ways and in a very basic way. For example, in cases for naturalization, an individual that is seeking to naturalize, to go from a permanent resident to a U.S. citizen, one of the questions that the application asks is, since you've become a permanent resident, has there ever been a year where you failed to report your income taxes? And if there is, then you have to explain why. So let's say that one year I was a full-time student and I wasn't working. Well, then that is a valid explanation. But saying something like, well, I get paid in cash, and so even though I make good money, I don't have to report it because I got paid in cash. That's not how it works. Even if you're getting paid in cash, you still have to report it. And for citizenship, if you haven't paid taxes, especially within the last 5 years, or if you're doing it through a U.S. citizen spouse for the last 3 years, then that can be a sign that you lack the good moral character in order to naturalize. And so it's just super important. You have to report your taxes. Some people may report their income and they may not owe anything. They may get money back. And so it's important to do that. And one bit of advice that I think Jennifer was going to suggest was that for individuals that are here that don't have a social security number, you can apply for what people call the ITIN, the individual tax identification number. And that can be used in order to process your tax and your income records, so that, if you don't have social, it's not an excuse. You're able to apply for it and get it. Many people, I understand, usually apply for it, need to provide a passport or some sort of identification. And often it is done by the same people that are able to do your taxes. And so just know that not having a social is just not reason enough to not do it. Another way that not paying income taxes can affect you is in cases for removal defense. And there's a type of case, very typical. People don't often know the name of it, but it's called cancellation of removal for non-lawful permanent residents. And those are the cases where if you're in deportation proceedings and you have been in the United States for 10 years and you have you don't have any disqualifying crimes, then if you can show you have good moral character, which is one of the requirements, you're able to proceed with that defense. Now, winning it is another thing. You do have to show extraordinary and unusual hardship in order to win it to a permanent resident or U.S. citizen qualifying relative. However, there have been cases where individuals that are working could have reported income taxes and they don't. And by not filing, the judges see that as evidence of lacking good moral character. Now, there can be perfectly good reasons for not filing. So if the individual was not earning enough, and you can have a tax professional and a licensed accountant say, well, Jose Smith was not earning enough, well, then that can be a perfectly good explanation as to why. But reporting your income taxes is good evidence of moral character. Also, it's evidence of your physical presence. So sometimes in those defenses, in cancellation of removal defenses, you have to show physical presence. And so if I'm reporting $50,000 a year for 10 years, that's very good evidence of my physical presence, because most people do not earn 50,000 in one day. So if you're able to show that you're earning this income, a significant amount of income, and you're reporting your taxes, that's also evidence that can be used in court for good, for physical presence. And I'll give a specific example of how reporting taxes can help you, even when showing taxes is not a requirement. One of the things that we do is as detention defense. So people who are detained, we will apply for an immigration bond with the courts. And I had a case where an individual who had been accused and convicted of 2 crimes, had been arrested 4 times. And it's one of those cases where, well, maybe you get it, maybe you don't get the bond. The fact that my client had been present in the United States for almost 20 years and had reported his income taxes every year was something that the judge looked as a very positive factor, and evidence that my client, despite his legal troubles, is someone that is trying to live up to the law. He's trying to meet his requirements as someone who's working in the United States. Not having status is not an excuse for not doing it. There are different organizations and nonprofits all over the United States that do help with taxes. And so, check in your community to see if there are people that would be able to help you if you cannot afford to have a licensed accountant or a tax professional do your taxes. Here in Austin, I think we have, Jennifer mentioned, it was community tax centers, and they will, they're very thorough, very, very well trained, and have helped many of her clients. And so, well, it's right there, community tax centers or Prosper Centers in Austin. And they are able to help many individuals. And even if you think you may earn a little bit too much, find out, see if they're able to help you, and do those taxes, because they can have so many different negative consequences in your case. I think the last thing that I would want to talk about is how taxes can help show that you have a valid relationship. So, in many family cases, one of the principal petitions or applications that you file is called an I-130 petition for immigrant spouse, or, it could be for children and parents as well. But one of the things that you have to show when you're filing uh, for your spouse's permanent resident status is proving that you have a good faith marriage. And having a commingling of assets and income responsibilities is one way of proving that. Well, being able to show that you're living with an individual, that you're reporting your income, and that you have your children together, and you're claiming them, is good evidence that, well, one, you're meeting your obligations, that you're a good person, responsible, but two, that this is a legit relationship. Something that you should definitely not do, even though it may mean that you get more money, is sometimes I've heard where married couples living together and they have children are advised by who knows who's doing their taxes, that if they claim to be head of household, they would get more money back. Well, as I understand, and everything that I say, please verify with public accountant. But as I understand, in order to qualify to claim as head of household, the individual, if you're married, you have to have lived at least half the year apart, all the way to the end of the year. And so if you're married and you're living together and you're sharing, financial responsibilities, and you're both working, my understanding is you do not qualify for head of household. And how it affects you in an immigration case is that if you're trying to help your spouse, or your spouse is trying to help you with your status through your marriage, and you're providing immigration taxes showing that you're head of household, well, they're going to say, well, I mean, are you all living apart? Like, why is it that you're filing head of household if you're claiming in your paperwork that you've lived together and you haven't lived separately since you married? So it's just one way that can just really shoot you down, and it can make you look terrible. And once they think that you're lying about one thing, they might start believing that you're lying about other things, and your credibility just goes down the tubes. It's not worth it. Those few $100s more, or a couple $1,000s more, it's not worth your status. It's not worth breaking the law. And, there can also be criminal sanctions if the law gets involved. So please just do your taxes and do them right. It's what brought down Al Capone. So, it can bring you down too. Well, I think I've been rambling on for almost 20 minutes, and we just want to say, just make sure that you get your tax filings done on time. If you need extra time, there's forms where you can apply for an extension. There should be no excuse to not filing them. You still have till mid-April, so about 3 weeks left or so. If you need any immigration help, JLW Immigration Law Group is here to help you. Please go online. You can schedule an appointment with me, Jennifer, Jackie, or Sandra, and we can help you with your immigration case. We can answer your questions and hopefully help your family stay together. You can also call. Our phone number is 512-633-1785, and a receptionist will take your call, schedule you for an appointment. We would be happy to talk to you. Also, if this information is helpful, please like it, share it with friends, family, and hopefully we will see you the next time. Thank you. I'm Diego Nunez, and for Jennifer, I'm going to say bye, Jennifer. Having a few technical issues. Y'all take care. Have a good weekend, and be good. Bye.